Hi, I'm Scott from Tamarack Shack Antiques and Heckman Auction, and today I want to talk to you about the basics of U.S. coins and what you could find in your estate or inheriting or on the street, sometimes in your pocket change. The difference between silver and clad and the types of coins that you'll typically find. We won't be getting to the very rare or unusual types of coins, but we'll cover most of the dollars, half dollars, quarters, dimes, nickels, and cents. There are some to find value in your estate or something that you inherited from your grandparents, or you might have them anyway. And one of them is showing you about the dollars, as you'll see here. The Morgan dollar, the Liberty Morgan dollar, designed by Morgan. The next is the peace dollar. The last, that might get confusing, is called the Eisenhower or Ike dollar. The last does not have any silver value except in some of the commemorative types. We'll also talk about half dollars, starting out with the Barber half dollar, running into the Walking Liberty half dollar, the Franklin half dollar, and the John F. Kennedy half dollar, and some of the differences and the values. We'll look at the Barber quarters, the Washington headquarters, and when the cutoff was in 1964 for silver versus clad in the metal content. We'll talk about Barber Dimes, Mercury Dimes, and Roosevelt Dimes. In nickel, get the V nickel, the Buffalo nickel, and the Jefferson Nickel. And there's a couple of rare ones in there that actually have silver. Not rare, but less common Jefferson Nickels. We'll talk about head cent, leading up to the Lincoln cent or the wheat cent, and then the Lincoln Memorial cent, up to the commemoratives today. Here are several examples of U.S. coins. The coins that typically have the most value that we will be discussing are U.S. silver coins. Silver coins have intrinsic value, which means melt or silver weight value, but they may have some collector value above that amount. Typical pennies or nickels have their face value and may have collector value above that amount as well. And sometimes those values are maybe significant, especially as compared to their face values or times face. Here are some basics. The United States discontinued their silver content in their business strike coins after 1964. All U.S. dollars, half dollars, quarters, and dimes were made with the 90% silver until 1964. After that, they were made with the copper and nickel alloy. Keep in mind there is one exception to that rule. There is a nice site that breaks down each type of coin with a silver melt value called coinflation.com. If you are out and about without the internet, there is a rough and relatively accurate formula to determine approximate silver value of each type of coin. U.S. silver coins are, after multiplying 90% times their weight compared to the troy ounce, are about 77% of their value in the comparative face value to a troy ounce. What does that mean? Well, I round it to 3/4 to make it easy. In other words, if the spot value is $16, spot value of a troy ounce of silver is $16, and you want to know the silver melt value of a silver dollar, you can round it by figuring 3/4 of $16, which equals $12. In the coin business, this is also known as 12 times face. If you can figure it out to a silver dollar, all you have to do is make change. Since you know the silver dollar is worth $12 in silver, then, you guessed it, the half dollar, shown over here, the half dollar is worth $6 in that case. Figuring out the times face value helps you too when you are working with multiple coins. Say, for example, you found 2 silver dollars, 6 half dollars, 14 silver quarters, and 26 dimes. you add up the coins in dollar value, which would be $11.10 face, and you multiply it by 12. And the value just in silver of that would be $133.20. But wait, what if you don't know which coins are silver and which coins aren't? Let me show you general examples. Let us start out with probably the most popular coin the U.S. has ever minted, the Morgan Silver Dollar. This is technically known as the Liberty Dollar, but more people know it as the Morgan Dollar, and it's named after their designer. Generally speaking, Morgan dollars have collector value that is greater than the melt value. But remember, condition and date versus mint mark are key components. Here's a comparison of a Morgan dollar that is about, it's probably AU, BU, what they'd call like a almost uncirculated, versus something that's what they call good, AG4. There's a 70-point scale on grading coins. The closer you get to 70, the rarer and more valuable the coin is. And it doesn't matter if it's new coins or old coins. So, here's the date. Most of the places, most of the coins do have a date somewhere. Right here you'd see it. And on Morgan dollars, there's a mint mark. And it would be located right here. But this does not have a mint mark, so that means it's made in Philadelphia. This one does have a mint mark. O for New Orleans. You won't be able to go through all the mint marks of every type of coin today, but I wanted to show you that some of the coins have dates and mint marks. And that's what really condition and dates and mint marks are what give a coin more or less collector value. Here are a couple of examples of Eisenhower dollars. I mean, you have the Morgans, and we don't have any peace dollars to show you here, except I'll bring up a photo in just a moment of a peace dollar that we've sold at auction or we've had in our shop before. But as you can see, you have the Eisenhower dollar that was started to be made in, I believe, 1971, 72. And it is what they call a sandwich coin. It doesn't have any silver value. You can kind of see that coppery edge there. That's one way to tell. Sometimes you're not sure, but the date usually always tells. So you've got the Morgan dollar, the peace dollar, and the Eisenhower dollar. And what a lot of people get Eisenhower dollars mixed up with silver dollars. They have no silver value. There is one exception to that rule. For special mint or special proofs, they made Eisenhower silver dollars, but they were never put into circulation. So you'll see them in coin collections and such. But anything that was put into circulation will be a sandwich coin, which is $1. Although Eisenhower dollars, many times when we sell them at auction, are worth $1 to $2 to $3 a piece. So there you go. Now we'll talk about half dollars. We'll leave out Barber dollars on this one, but we'll talk about Walking Liberty half dollars, Ben Franklin half dollars, and John F. Kennedy half dollars. Now to start, you have the Walking Liberty half dollar. And those were minted from 1916 to 1947. And they are of a beautiful, well, Lady Liberty walking. And it has an eagle on the back. That's what they look like. And these are typical of what they appear because $50 at that time period, those time periods, they were heavily used. In fact, they can get worn down as much as this, where the date gets worn off. Can't read the date anymore on that one. And walking Liberty $50, again, are all 90% silver. Now to the Ben Franklin $50. They were minted from 1948 to 1963. And you got old Benjamin Franklin. And on the back, you got the Liberty Bell. And as you can see there, that's the mint mark on this particular one. It's right above the bell if you want to look for the mint mark on a Franklin half. I believe they were all above the bell. It might have been the early ones that didn't have it. Anyway, those are also all coins that are 90% silver. So if you see any Ben Franklin $50 or any Walking Liberty $50, they are 90% silver. Now on to the JFK halves. The JFK half, the first year they made it was 1964, and they made it in 90% silver. But after that, this is one of the exceptions to the rule of all coins that were in business strike were discontinued with silver in 1965, except for the JFK half, which up until 1970 was made with 40% silver. So from 65, 69, they're 40% silver. And that is John F. Kennedy. And on the back, got the eagle. So this is one, here's a little tip. There's a lot of people that don't realize that the $50 from 1965 to 1969 are actually 40% silver. That site I had mentioned before, coinflation.com, does the math for you on that because it's a little bit more difficult than just 90% silver and that 3/4 to the troy ounce. So there you have it. Later on, if you look over here, the John F. Kennedy $50 was made, actually still made, and it's never been a highly minted coin. So some of these coins can have some value over and above their 50-cent range, even if they don't have any silver value. I personally don't like to buy those coins, but it's out there for you if you want to resell or something of that nature. You can find stuff. So they're still made, they're still being minted, and popular president. So there you are with the $50. We went through the Walking Liberty, Ben Franklin. The Walking Liberty and the Ben Franklin both are all 90% coins, any of those that you find. 90% silver. The JFK halves, there's a few rules. 1964, they're 90%. And then from 64 or 65 to 70, they're 40%. And from then on, they've been, again, a sandwich coin, a cupra nickel, if you would. And that's what you have for $50. Now we're going to go on to the quarters. We're going to skip the Barber quarters this time. We'll go to Standing Liberty quarters. And the Standing Liberty quarter was minted from 1916 to 1930. And on the front you have Liberty standing with a shield. And on the back you have an eagle flying. It's a really well-used coin typically, the Standing Liberty quarter. But very collectible. And any Standing Liberty quarters that you find are 90% silver. Now, here is a commonly misunderstood coin just simply because it's been minted for so long. And that is the Washington quarter, which is and it has been minted from 1932 until the present. But from 1932 to 1964, Washington quarters were 90% silver. And they pretty much looked the same until about, I don't know, 2005, I think they started kind of changing the way that, I know they've had some updates in the past, but the way that Washington looked. So there's a lot of them that look the same that aren't silver, and then some of the older ones are silver. Typically the silver ones, again, will have a little bit different toning. We get a little yellow in this light here, and it doesn't look that way, but if you see these quarters out and about, they look maybe like this here. Looks like a regular quarter that you might find in your pocket. Anyway, you have $quarter, and a lot of people, especially if you had a grandma or grandpa that went through the Depression, or a mother or father or whoever's watching here, and they kept these quarters, anything besides 1964 or before is 90% silver for the Washington quarters. And believe me, a lot of times I've found where somebody will have a coffee can, and it's not unheard of. It's actually kind of common where people will walk into a bank and just run them through the coin machine, cash them out, when they could have got, like right now is 11 times face or 12 times face or whatever it is at this point in time. We won't talk those kind of values because prices do change. So if I make this video today, in 2-3 weeks, or tomorrow, it could be different. So we're going to go on to the dimes. Now we'll talk about dimes and their silver value. We'll start out this time with Barber Dimes. We have several of them to show. And then move on to Roosevelt or Mercury Dimes, and then to Roosevelt Dimes. The Barber Dime was minted between 1892 and 1916. And I will tell you that Barber Dimes, they're all 90% silver, so if you see any of them, that's what they look like. On the front, you have Lady Liberty, and on the back, it says 1 dime. Let me turn that over real quick. 1 dime. If you find any of these that are in really nice condition, and all the ones you're going to see here are in good, what they call good, or about good, or very good, which is really not that good. But if you find any that are in really good shape, they have a lot of value over and above their silver. That's a tip I have for you. Whereas some of these other coins don't, such as the later Mercury Dimes, and definitely the silver Roosevelt Dimes don't have that much value over and above their silver value at this time. The Barber Dimes, if you see any that are really bright and shiny, they generally can be worth, there's a lot of them that are worth $20, $50, $70, $100, $200, $300, $400, and you can send them in to get graded by services called like NGC or PCGS or Annex, and it can really drive the value up for you. Oh, that's a V nickel. There you go, Barber Dimes. So the Barber Dime again was from 1892 to 1916. If you find any in really good shape, those are ones, again, you should take the time to look up with the dates. The condition really means a lot. We'll move on to the Mercury Dimes. Mercury Dime was made from 1916 to 1945. And so you got Mercury head on the front, and on the back you have pillar. And in the coin world, the front is called the obverse, and the back is called the reverse. The Mercury Dime is a very popular dime. Any time you find a Mercury Dime, they are 90% silver. There are none in the series that are not silver, just like the Barber Dime. Again, remember the year is 1964 when it changed over. And the last one that was minted was 1945. So, pretty safe there. It's really a cool collectible, and there are some really big key dates in this. 1916D is a key date coin. Again, rare coins are rare for a reason. You don't find them too often. But if you find one of these, they're just a neat coin. And they have silver. So, we're going to move on to the Roosevelt Dime. The Roosevelt Dime is still it's still being minted, but from 1946, which is started, to 1964, they were 90% silver. And you got FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, on the front. They started to be minted right after his death in 1945. And although he was a pretty terrible president overall, he's been a popular coin apparently. And they've kept him on. On the back you've got the three torches. Let me turn that over for you. There you go. There aren't a lot of key dates in this particular set yet. Key dates, a lot of times, are because they just had a limited run. They didn't mint many, and a lot of them are in their first years or so. But this particular grouping doesn't yet have any major strong key dates. Now, we're going to move on to the nickels. Now we'll move on to the nickels. First we'll talk about the V nickel, or Victory nickel. It's also called the Liberty Head nickel. The reason they call it a V nickel is on the back they have a V, or Roman numeral 5. And that's what people know it as. Again, they call it a Liberty Head nickel, but it's actually what they call a V nickel, or most people know it as. V nickels have 0% silver. None of them have any silver. However, there's a couple of things that you need to know about these. There's several key dates. Here's one that's in 1888. It's not in good shape, but it's a key date. There's several key dates in this particular series, and again, they were made from 1883 to 1913. So if you find any that are in really nice condition, especially, they can have some considerable value, especially compared to the actual dollar value. By the way, 1/20th of a dollar, 5 cents, and there's several nickels in this series that can easily be in that $20 to $30 and $40 range, but then there's several that are several hundred. So, V nickels, that would be something that you might be interested in looking at. The next is the Buffalo nickel. Buffalo nickel has no silver in it, but they're a popular coin. There's a couple of things that they do with these. Well, you have a Native American on the front and a buffalo on the back, and that's why they're called the Buffalo nickel. And a nickel at this time was a heavily used coin, so many of them are what they call no dates. You can't read the date anymore because they get worn off. But it's a great coin. They were minted from 1913 to 1938. There's several key dates, and there's a couple error coins in this particular series that are very valuable. But generally speaking, even a worn out nickel at this time is worth 5 times face, even with no silver value. So if you find anything that's in really nice shiny condition, even in maybe a poor date, they have a little more value. And if you find a key date, which again, anywhere in that 1913 to 1929 range, or 25 range I'd say, any of those coins in really nice condition can have some considerable value as compared to their face. So the Buffalo nickels, if you find these in the States, they have some value over and above a nickel. Now we'll talk about the Jefferson nickel. It's been minted from 1938 all the way up to the present, and almost none of them have silver. There was a very short period of time, and they call them war nickels or wartime nickels, and they were made from 1942 to 1945, and they have 35% silver. So that is actually one of the types of coins that you can find that are silver. And the Jefferson nickel has changed here in the last 10 years, but you have Jefferson on the obverse, and then Jefferson's home, Monticello, on the reverse. Those silver wartime nickels, which I don't know if I have any here, I'll see if I can get a picture off to the side. The mint mark on the back for the silver nickels is right above the dome, and it'll be a big P or S or D, and that'll denote if it has silver. Most of the ones that you find, 99% of them or more, will not be silver, they'll just be nickel. And again, there aren't a lot of key dates yet, although the silver war nickels are pretty collectible. So the Jefferson nickel, again, most of the stuff that you're going to find, if it's anything past 1940, it's usually worth just cashing in. But there are a few exceptions to that rule, and I did want to talk to you about that Jefferson nickel. We'll move on to the cents. Now to start, we've got the Indian head cent. The Indian head cent were made from 1859 to 1909. It's a very, very popular coin. So the Indian head penny was, again, made from 1859 to 1909. They have no silver value. They are copper. But if you find something in actually any of the Indian head pennies, generally speaking, are even in really rough condition, worth about $1. But if you find anything, especially in the early range, in the 1850s, and there's several key dates in there, 1877 is a big coin, they run up in that $10, $20, $30 range, and then can be several hundred or more. That's the neat thing about Indian head pennies. Just in a general sense, there were 100 times face. You can pick them up sometimes cheaper, 50 cents a piece or something like that, but generally $1 for any old, ragged old Indian head penny. So that's the Indian head cent. Again, you've got the Indian head on the front, and on the back you have kind of a laurel, and it says 1 cent. Next up is the Lincoln head cent. And when they first started out, they had what people call them are wheat pennies. So the backs of them have wheat, and it says 1 cent. And they made a major change to the Lincoln Memorial in 1963, I believe. And that's the real difference, right there, the back. The front made some minor changes over the years. There's several key dates in the Lincoln head, or Lincoln cent. And one of them is the 1909 SVDB. It's kind of the big coin. Many wheat pennies nowadays, if you look real close, they're worth 3 to 6 cents just in a general case. And then there's error coins, and a lot of people like to collect cents. But for anything, you know, again, you're talking about a copper coin, so there's no silver value. But you can have some value in some of the older books. If Grandpa, let's say, had some stuff before 1920, and especially if it's nice and shiny, you're going to have some value there. But condition is a huge component. We won't go through that today. I hope this helps you a little bit with the value of coins. Most of the time, as an auctioneer or an antique dealer, a lot of people will bring in things and they way overvalue or way undervalue it. And you can kind of get a little bit better idea by going to a few sites such as coinflation.com. You can also look at the silver price, and if you have an idea what the content of each coin is, it will give you a better understanding of what the potential value is. This is Scott from Heckman Auction and Tamarack Shack Antiques, and we'll see you on the auction trail.